first on the list of the top 5 salamanders is the tiger salamander. These are by far the biggest salamander on the list. They're around 20 to 30 centimetres, which means they need a fairly big enclosure, something like a 60 by 45 by 30 centimetre glass enclosure or equivalent size with a tub. I wouldn't really recommend a wooden enclosure because that could cause the wood to rot and then it just wouldn't last long. You can go bioactive with these guys, so you could use a bioactive soil, or if you're going more basic you could use something like cocoa fibre or orchid bark. I'd recommend topping it off with moss because the soil can irritate them, but they will dig, and then because they are amphibians they do live in more wetland areas and they do go near a lot of water, so I'd recommend a large water bowl. Dechlorinate any water you use with something like Zumed RetriSafe, which is a dechlorinator, so it removes anything harmful for them, because amphibians they absorb everything through their skin, and like straight tap water isn't safe for them, so make sure you have that. You want to mist them, so like mist the enclosure so it's more moist for them. And then, of course, you want to provide places for them to hide. So things like log hides, caves, cork bark, branches, fake plants, live plants. All of these things will be great for your salamander. Make sure it's like more cluttery so they can kind of like wiggle in between all of that whilst they're hunting insects, which brings us to the next thing. These are insectivores, so you will need to feed them things like crickets, locusts, dubia roaches, mealworms, and you want to dust them with calcium and vitamin supplements so that they have the same amount of nutrition that they would in the wild. So I guess that tops off about tiger salamanders. So second on the list of the top 5 salamanders is the fire salamander. These are basically like a European tiger salamander that's a bit smaller, so something around 15 centimetres, and can be kept in groups. So that's basically, to summarise them, they have a different pattern and so on, but it's basically the same care. So a 60 by 45 by 30 enclosure with coconut fibre or orchid bark or mulch or something, and then moss on top for the substrate, and then different hides like branches, bark, rocks, log hides, caves, all these different things, fake plants, live plants, all different decorations you can use with these salamanders. They are insectivores as well, so they're going to be eating the insect feeders, the same as the tiger salamander, just maybe a little bit smaller, because they are smaller than the tiger salamanders. So different things like crickets, locusts, dubia roaches, mealworms, waxworms, morio worms, dust them with calcium and vitamin supplements, so that and also gut load them, so give them things like lettuce, pre-formulated gut load, bug gel, different things to make sure that they're the healthiest before you feed them to your salamander. And for lighting, maybe something like an LED so you can see in there. They don't require UVB, but they'd benefit from it, so a zone 1 bulb, something like a 2.4% UVB would be good for these salamanders, but they don't require it. But don't give them any heat, because if they overheat then they can die very quickly, so don't do that. So next on the list of the top 5 salamanders is the spotted salamander. So these are found in North America, just like the tiger salamander. They are slightly smaller than the tiger salamander, so you could keep them in a slightly smaller enclosure, but I'd still recommend a 60 by 45 by 30 centimetre enclosure. That would be a good size for them. Always bigger is better, remember that. The same sort of substrate can be used, so coconut fibre, peat moss, orchid bark, cypress mulch, anything like that that will hold moisture but won't be soaking will be good for them. Some sort of moss, I recommend sphagnum moss or forest moss, and then a water bowl that they can fit into and absorb the water. Water conditioner like ReptiSafe. You want to give them hides, bark, branches, live or fake plants. An LED can be used, it's not necessary though. UVB, something like a zone 1 or 2.4% bulb, perfect for these guys, but not essential. Heating, you don't need heating. There's no real reason to give them any sorts of heating because it can kill them if it gets too hot in there. But of course, keep misting them like all the other salamanders we've mentioned. They are insectivores, so feed them things like crickets, locusts, roaches, mealworms, waxworms. Dust them with your calcium and vitamin supplements, and your spotted salamander should do well for you, and they can live like 10 years like all the other salamanders we've mentioned so far. So next on the list is the axolotl. If you didn't know, axolotls are actually salamanders. This is what most larval salamanders look like. So like it's just like a tadpole with a frog. Most salamanders are aquatic like this. Now, because axolotls are aquatic, you want to give them an aquarium, something at least 2 foot long, like an 80-litre aquarium is minimum. You want to give them something like sand on the bottom. You can give them fake aquarium plants, live aquatic plants. Can give them a lot of different things. You want to give them filters and a water chiller. Do not use a heater, they like their water cold. You do not need any light. You can add an LED, like the LED which comes with aquariums. You can use them, but they don't need it. Different hides, like different aquarium decorations, driftwood, different logs and hides and rocks for them to hide in. You want to feed them axolotl pellets. Also, you can feed them things like bloodworms, I believe. Arcadia do amphibian gold, which is an aquatic axolotl food that you can use for axolotls, of course. But really cool. Salamanders, do your research before. So next on the list is the marbled newt. Now you might think this is a newt, not a salamander. Why is it on this list? Now the truth is that all newts are salamanders, just like all toads are frogs. So that yes, they do belong on this list. Now these are a lot smaller than everything else on this list, so you can keep them in something like a 45 cube centimetre enclosure. So you can give them something like that. The same sort of substrate, so moss and coconut fibre or orchid bark will be just fine for them. You can do a bioactive enclosure for these guys, so you can do things like springtails and isopods, a large water bowl that they can soak in. You can even give these guys a paludarium, which is where it basically has a water section as well. These are insectivores, so feeding them smaller insects. Dust them with calcium and vitamin powders. They don't need any lighting, but you can add an LED just for you to see them. And they are a smaller species. Give them different types of bark and wood and hides, different things for them to go in about. And they are probably the most unique species on this list. These are found in Europe, so like southern France and Spain is where they're found. But they're a really cool species of newt, and I guess salamander as well. So the marbled newt brings us to the end of the top 5 salamanders. If you enjoyed this video or you want to see more content about reptiles and amphibians, feel free to like and subscribe to my channel for that content weekly. I enjoyed making this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, feel free to leave a comment down below, and with that, I'll see you in the next video.